my name's Nick Broughton, and I am a random fish. Hit that subscribe button, and why don't we be random fishes together, huh? Now, it's Christmas! It's the month of Christmas, yay! And you know what that means? I'm going to talk about Christmas movies. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about one Christmas movie now, and then next week I think I'm going to be talking about a Netflix show that I've been watching that I really want to talk about. But I don't want to talk about it until I've finished watching the whole series. That's kind of frustrating, but moving on. Christmas is one of those times where a lot of your childhood staples come back. Where you have this innate desire to watch things that you watched as a child over and over again. Not because you think they'll give you this feeling of when you're a child, but because for some reason when you watch them as an adult, you appreciate them more. And you find more humour in it than you did when you were a child. And for me, those films are rather random ones, actually. In recent years, one of the last Christmas movies I did on this channel was Santa Claus vs. the Martians. Back when I first started this channel, I did Santa Claus vs. the Martians. And that film, to me, very much was this attempt at hilariousness that wasn't quite as overly done well as I thought it could have been. But to me, at least, a film that I really wanted to watch over and over again was The Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, I have watched this film so many times. I watched it so much when I was a child. I watched it so much when I was an adult. I still watch it now. I don't have a copy of it anymore. I destroyed my original disc. That's how badly I watched it. I have to admit, part of it was my fault because I left it out for a very long time and then it got loads and loads of scratches all over it from when it was hit by the elements and whatnot. But, you know, we live, we learn, we do stupid things to the things that we love, and hopefully, you know, since the DVD I can go out and get another one. It's fine. But Muppet Christmas Carol is an amazing film for various reasons. But I'm going to go through the plot first. Obviously, if you've read A Christmas Carol, then you know the plot. But if you haven't, on the off chance that you haven't, here it is. An angry money miser called Scrooge. He's a moneylender, he's angry, he's annoyed all the time, and he hates Christmas. And he doesn't understand why everyone's jolly around this time of year, given that he's miserable, so therefore everyone else should be miserable kind of moment. It's a misery loves company kind of moment for him. And his employers, one of the guys who's under his employ, wants to go home for the holidays, wants to have Christmas off. Mr. Cratchit, Bob Cratchit, as he's called. Scrooge eventually lets him have the day off, even though he doesn't want to, and he goes back in, and he's going to be working himself. Scrooge doesn't really do Christmas; he never has, he never will. When he gets home, though, he's visited by a series of ghosts, one of which is his friend Marley, who he started his business with. Marley tells him that if he doesn't change his ways, he'll end up in a worse state than Marley is, and Marley's covered from head to toe in chains, and horrible things are happening to him and everything else under the sun. And he's been given this chance to allow Scrooge to mend his ways. While he's been pre-damned now, he's damned now, there's nothing he can do to change his fate. But Scrooge does have a chance at changing his fate. And Scrooge is then visited by the Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present, and the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. These three ghosts encapsulate his feelings of Christmas when he was a child, obviously, and also what allowed him to become so embittered towards Christmas as well. And then you get an even bigger shot on the top of that from Christmas Present, where you see Bob Cratchit and his family, and you see the hardships that he has to go through, including one or two members of his family, one of which being Tiny Tim, a little boy who literally needs a crutch to walk. And it's all very sad and and the audience will cry. It's lovely to see. And in The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come shows a future where Scrooge is dead, and everyone's really happy that he's dead. No one cares, no one's gone to his funeral, no one gives a monkeys that he's dead. Everyone just wants to divide up his possessions because that's all he really was. He was just possessions. Scrooge obviously freaks out over this revelation and, you know, amends his ways and starts celebrating Christmas again, even to the point where he brings a turkey to Bob Cratchit's house and he helps Tiny Tim, you know, he helps try to keep Tiny Tim well and not to allow him to die and everything else. You know, and all the lovely jubbly stuff that you sort of see that would have happened at the end of the story. The Muppet version of this is incredibly brilliant because not only is it filled with Muppet characters playing the various moments of characters within the film, but you get some rather cool jokes. Now, obviously, I watched this a lot as a child, so I know most of the jokes, or I know a lot of quotes from it anyway. And there's a brilliant bit when, at the beginning, when Gonzo from the Muppets, he's a whatever, and Rizzo are telling the story. Gonzo is being Charles Dickens in this. And there's just this brilliant thing where Rizzo just goes, "But you're not Charles Dickens." And he goes, "Of course I am." And he says something like, Charles Dickens was an 18th century novelist. He was a genius. And Gonzo looks at him and goes, why, thank you very much. Like, thank you very much for that. And it's such a small and insignificant line, but to me, that encapsulated everything about what the Muppets was. It was this thing where, yes, we've become these characters. We're still the Muppets. We still do comedy, but we've become these characters. That's good to me. That's a brilliant thing to me. It's not bastardizing the original. It's enhancing it and giving it this much more organic feel and a bit more of a comedic feel to it. For example, you've got Mr. Fezziwig from Scrooge's Past. He's meant to be this big, loud, bombastic character who truly celebrates the whole beauty of Christmas and everything else. And who do you think actually plays him in the Muppet version? The only person who could have, and the only person whose name actually works with Fezziwig. He becomes Fozziwig. It's Fozzie the Bear in a wig, in a suit. It's brilliant. It's genius. Obviously Kermit the Frog, he's the staple for the Muppets. He's the big poster boy for the Muppets. Of course he was going to play Bob Cratchit. He wasn't going to play Scrooge. They weren't going to make him the bad guy. There was no way. He just becomes that, he becomes Bob Cratchit. He becomes the heart and soul of the film. His wife, his children, they're played by Miss Piggy and all the little annoying little frog versions. And the little pigs and all this sort of thing. And it's all very lovely and amazing. And, you do honestly feel that that's what would have happened if Kermit and Miss Piggy had gotten married at that time. And they had, done what they'd done. And it was really quite funny to see. Now, obviously, you do get something a bit funnier in a future version of the Muppet film where you get Miss Piggy having a little fantasy sequence of their future together, and it's got nothing to do with, having a frog and a pig as two separate children. It's like they're trying to mesh them together. It's both incredibly horrifying and yet still hilarious all at the same time. It's a lot of fun to see. You then have Michael Caine playing Scrooge. Michael Caine. I mean, this is the man who made famous the line, "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off." Or at least the movie he was in made it famous. Even if he wasn't the one who said the line, he might have done. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched Italian Job. But that was the thing that made it brilliant. Michael Caine being Scrooge, to me, was the epitome. It's a bit like in Muppet Treasure Island. The reason why I always refer back to Muppet Treasure Island as well is that these two were basically kids. For those of you who are watching this, children, there was a time when we had cassettes. These giant tape things that you put into a different player, much like a DVD player, but much bigger and wider. And you put it in, and you could record stuff off TV onto a tape. And you actually had to rewind things to get back to the beginning. You couldn't go back to main menu. It wasn't a thing. If you're really struggling with this, ask your parents or your older siblings. They might remember. Parents possibly more so, if I'm going to be absolutely honest. But there was a point when I had Muppet Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol on the same tape. And I remember watching it over and over and over again, and my family can attest to this. Especially during Christmas. Those are the two films I watched a lot, and I listened to a tape called Save Our Santa. But that was the two films that I loved watching the most. And Michael Caine really made this film for me. And he made everything good about it. So I very much, for example, Gonzo, Rizzo, Kermit is Bob Cratchit, Miss Piggy is his wife. It's all amazing and funny and brilliant. And then you have the ghosts themselves. The Ghost of Christmas Past is played by this almost childlike, yet you could still feel the age, and you could still almost see the fact that it's an old person as well, but it's still a young, it's an old person trapped in a young person's body, and you're floating around. It's very ethereal, very cool. Ghost of Christmas Present. Just a big guy with a big ginger beard. Of course. That's how it was going to roll with Muppets. And then the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Everyone has that moment in childhood where there's something that scares the living piss out of them. That was mine. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come terrified me. Absolutely terrified me. And this isn't because this isn't something that I carry throughout my entire life. Like, I'm not still scared of him. But when I was a child, I was terrified. And he was brilliant. But that's my review, really. The whole thing is just a gigantic staple of my childhood. It's a big nostalgia trip for me to ever watch it. And when I get round to owning another copy, which will be very soon, I swear I'm going to watch it more times than I watch anything else this Christmas. I'll be honest, Santa Claus vs. the Martians, I wasn't going to watch ever again. Like, I still own my copy, but I don't think I'll ever put it in the DVD player unless I really, really want to not scare someone, but give them a proper laugh about what could be a really corny holiday movie. So, I'll watch Muppets Christmas Carol over and over again. I might watch Elf again. I might watch The Grinch Grinch Who Stole Christmas. People, whatever you want to watch on Christmas, it's up to you. There is no right or wrong here. There is no hatred for certain Christmas specials. There is nothing like that in your life, even if you don't want it to be. A lot of people don't like the 2000, whenever it is, Grinch film starring Jim Carrey. Why? Because it has a lot of adult jokes in there that doesn't work with the Dr. Seuss feel. But it's doing something with the Dr. Seuss story, and it was only ever really... It was trying to tell the Grinch story, but it was trying to tell it with a bit more of a modernised feel, and it was trying to tell it with a bit more oomph to it, I think. And that's really what makes this film work. And that's what makes that film work, and that's what makes all Christmas films work. It's still for kids, but there is some adult stuff that's thrown in there that could be that could either really hit the kids emotionally, or they won't get it until they reach a certain age, and then it will hit them emotionally. And that's what a good Christmas film does. That's what Muppets Christmas Carol does. And you know what that means? I'll be back next week with another review. But until then, Randomfish out, people.